The night everything changed. The ballroom shimmered with soft golden light, the chandeliers casting an elegant glow over the expensively dressed crowd. Laughter and the hum of conversation filled the air, mingling with the faint strains of a live band playing nostalgic hits from our school days. It was supposed to be an evening of reunion, of reminiscing and reconnecting with the people who had shaped our youth. Instead, it became the night I discovered the bitter truth. I stood at the entrance, adjusting the cuffs of my tailored suit, watching Isabel flit effortlessly between old friends. She was radiant, draped in an emerald green gown that hugged her figure in all the right places. Her laughter rang out light and melodic, but something about it felt different tonight, forced, almost theatrical. For weeks leading up to this event, she had been distant, guarded. Whispers in the next room, quick taps on her phone screen, a secretive smile that she never directed at me. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it was simply excitement over seeing her classmates again. But when I saw the name light up her phone screen one night, Lucas, I knew better. Lucas Morrow, her high school sweetheart, the one she never quite let go of. Even then, I had clung to the last shreds of denial, telling myself that it was just nostalgia, harmless catching up. But as the night unfolded before me, the truth became undeniable. The moment he entered, her entire demeanor changed. She lit up in a way she never did with me anymore. Her posture straightened. Her eyes gleamed with excitement. And when he crossed the ballroom toward her, she moved without hesitation into his arms. I watched, my fingers tightening around the glass of whiskey in my hand as they danced. He held her close, far too close, his hands drifting down her back, resting where they had no right to be. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, her fingers tracing delicate patterns on his chest, her lips curving into a knowing smile. And then she did the unthinkable. She turned her head and looked directly at me, and laughed. Not a nervous chuckle, not an accidental giggle, but a cruel, mocking laugh. A sound that cut through the air like a knife, drawing the attention of those around us. I felt their eyes on me, their whispers slithering through the room like venom. Something inside me snapped. I strode across the floor, my movements measured, controlled. Lucas noticed me first, his lips curling into an amused smirk, as if he were already reveling in his victory. I stopped directly in front of them. "Take your hands off my wife," I said, my voice low, laced with a fury I had never allowed myself to express. "Or I'll break them." Lucas didn't even flinch. Instead, he leaned in, his breath heavy with the scent of bourbon. "Try it, nerd," he sneered, "and I'll leave you in a bloody heap." And Isabel? She laughed again, right in my face. At that moment, I realized something. I had spent years sacrificing, building, providing. I had given her everything, never asking for more than her love and loyalty. And yet, here she was, humiliating me in front of everyone we once called friends. To her, I was nothing but a joke, a weak, disposable man she could toy with. But she had underestimated me. I didn't react the way they expected. I didn't lash out, didn't throw a punch or cause a scene. Instead, I smiled, a slow, knowing smile that made Isabel's amusement falter and Lucas's smirk waver. Good. Let them wonder. I turned away, walking toward the bar, the weight of their stares pressing against my back. As I took a slow sip of my drink, I pulled out my phone and sent a single message. To my lawyer, to my banker, to the private investigator I had hired weeks ago when the pieces of Isabel's deception began falling into place. Because while she had been busy rekindling her romance with Lucas, I had been busy uncovering the truth. I knew about the secret apartment she had been renting under a fake name. I knew about the hidden bank account where she had been stashing away thousands. And I knew that Lucas wasn't just an old flame. He was a con artist, a man who had burned through his own wealth and had been using Isabel as his latest cash cow, convincing her to fund his extravagant lifestyle. And she had fallen for it, completely blindly. But tonight, everything was about to come crashing down. I turned back to them, still standing in the center of the room, still basking in their misplaced triumph. I raised my glass. "Enjoy the night," I said smoothly. Isabel narrowed her eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" I simply smiled again, because as she stood there, completely unaware, her world had already begun to crumble. A single chime broke the air, then another, and another. Phones around the room lit up with notifications. I saw confusion flicker across faces as people read their screens, glancing between Isabel, Lucas, and me. Whispers grew into murmurs, murmurs into gasps. And then Isabel's phone buzzed. She picked it up, her brows furrowing, her face drained of color as she read the email that had just been sent to every single person in attendance, exposing everything. The apartment, the bank account, the money she had siphoned from our joint savings. The truth about Lucas's past and his long list of victims. I watched as realization dawned on her, as her carefully constructed facade shattered in an instant. Lucas stepped back, the smirk finally gone, replaced with something akin to panic. I leaned in close, just enough for only her to hear. "You thought you had won, Isabel," I murmured. "But you lost the moment you decided to betray me." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing amidst the wreckage of her own making. The night that was meant to be a celebration had become something else entirely. The night I took back my power. The night she lost everything. Phone after phone lit up across the grand ballroom, screens flashing as messages arrived in rapid succession. A hush fell over the crowd, whispers swirling like a rising tide, their gazes darting toward Isabel and Lucas. The one celebratory atmosphere shifted, charged with tension, curiosity, and impending revelation. Isabel frowned, her perfectly manicured fingers fumbling as she pulled her phone from her clutch. The second her eyes landed on the screen, the color drained from her face. Her hands trembled as she scrolled, breath hitching in her throat. Lucas, standing beside her, noticed her sudden distress. His brows knitted together in concern. "What's wrong?" he asked, voice low but edged with unease. But before she could answer, the whispers transformed into laughter. Low at first, then building in momentum, a wave of amusement, disbelief, and derision sweeping through the ballroom. At the far end of the room, I leaned against the polished mahogany bar, the crystal glass in my hand catching the warm glow of the chandeliers above. The amber liquid swirled lazily as I took a measured sip, savoring the moment. Isabel's wide, furious eyes locked onto mine. Her voice, usually poised and controlled, shook with barely restrained fury. "What did you do?" she demanded, her knuckles whitening around her phone. I lifted my glass in a slow, mocking toast, the corner of my lips curving in amusement. "Oh, nothing much," I mused. "I just thought your classmates should know the truth." Lucas's phone buzzed in his pocket. He yanked it out, his expression neutral at first, but the moment he saw what was on his screen, his face darkened. His body tensed as realization struck. Around us, gasps rippled through the attendees as one by one. They absorbed the damning contents of an email sent from Isabel's own account. Attached were indisputable screenshots, bank statements exposing clandestine transactions, hidden messages revealing whispered secrets, and, most damning of all, concrete proof of her affair. The details were irrefutable. But that wasn't all. The documents also revealed Lucas for what he truly was. A con artist who had spent years preying on affluent women, promising them love, a future, all while draining their accounts dry. And tonight, in front of everyone who mattered, his entire web of deception had unraveled. "Oh my God," someone murmured. "She was funding his entire life." Another whispered, horrified. "She was planning to leave Nathan and take everything with her." A stunned voice added. The murmurs of disbelief and disgust grew louder, a storm brewing in the grand hall. Lucas turned to Isabel, his carefully crafted facade fracturing. The charming mask he had worn so effortlessly was gone, replaced by something raw and venomous. You stupid, careless fool, he spat, his voice a dangerous growl. How could you let this happen? Isabel staggered back, her lips parting in shock. Me, she gasped. You said no one would ever find out. I chuckled, swirling my drink leisurely. Oh, did he now? I mused, raising an eyebrow. And you believed him? Lucas turned to me, fury blazing in his dark eyes. You think this is funny? I straightened, taking a deliberate step toward him. The room stilled, all eyes on us. No, Lucas, I said, my voice calm and even. What's funny is that you actually thought you could get away with it. He clenched his fists, his body coiled with tension. But before he could act on his rage, I pulled out my phone. I chided, tapping the screen. Before you do something stupid, you should know. He watched, his anger giving way to wariness. Your bank accounts? Frozen. His breath hitched. Your credit cards? Cancelled. The color drained from his face. The penthouse you've been staying in? You were evicted 30 minutes ago. Lucas swayed slightly, as if the weight of the words were pressing down on him, suffocating him. You have nothing, I finished, my smirk widening. You're broke, Lucas. Just like every woman you've scammed before. Except this time, I leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. There's no one left to save you. He stood frozen, his confidence shattered. Isabel, meanwhile, frantically searched the crowd for support. Her so-called friends edged away, repulsion clear on their faces. Even her boss, a towering figure in the financial world, shook his head in disappointment. This is a disgrace, he muttered. Tears welled in Isabel's eyes. Nathan, please, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I held up a hand. Oh, don't worry, Isabel, I said smoothly. I made sure you'll have plenty of time to think about what you've done. Her brows furrowed in confusion. Then, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. The crowd parted as uniformed officers strode in, their presence undeniable. Isabel Carter, one officer announced. She turned slowly, her face pale. We have a warrant for your arrest. Charges include financial fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. Panic set in. No, she cried. There must be some mistake. Lucas let out a bitter laugh. Looks like you got played too, sweetheart. I stepped closer, lowering my voice just for her. You tried to destroy me, Isabel, I murmured. But I'm always 10 steps ahead. As the officer snapped the cuffs around her wrists, she screamed my name, her voice raw with desperation. But I merely watched composed, free from the woman who had once tried to ruin me. Lucas disappeared after that night, his reputation obliterated. Last I heard, he was begging for money online, a mere shadow of the con man he once was. As for Isabel, her career was in shambles. No financial firm would touch her, and her freedom? Let's just say fraud charges don't disappear overnight. As for me, I moved on, found someone who truly loved and respected me. And every so often, when I think back to that night, I remind myself of one simple truth. The best revenge isn't anger. It's success.